Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show. So today I have what I hope is a treat for you guys, a little bit of a different show, as instead of simply focusing on recounting a particular event, I'm going to let you all in on one of the weird locations I got to visit recently, Menomonie, Wisconsin's Devils Punchbowl. Now, as you may suspect, the main reason why I wanted to visit the Devil's Punchbowl was for its supernatural connotations, which we'll get to in a second, because first I have to nail down the natural aspects of the Punch Bowl, which make it so just absolutely one of a kind. So the Devil's Punch Bowl is truly a geologic gem. When I first arrived at the parking area, all you really saw was a few trees. It looked like a pretty basic hiking trail that split off into two sections with stairs leading down. So I took the one that led around the top of the Punch Bowl first. And it's so weird because, I was going down this trail and eventually I saw, oh yeah, there's where it opens up, and it looked pretty cool. It was this kind of deep sort of gorge type area and it looked pretty, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, and continued on. And that side of the trail terminates in a field, I think a field of wheat or something like that. And no trespassing signs, of course. And then off the trail, a little bit further back away from someone's private property, is a tunnel. So of course I went through the tunnel, which was absolutely covered in graffiti, and the opening of it had my personal favorite piece, which was "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." It really made me feel like I was going to some sort of new age hellmouth. So go through this graffitied tunnel, and that opens up into this nice little glen of just greenery. Now, the weirdest thing is that amidst the greenery, I started noticing these weird plastic hoses and tubes of different types, and so immediately I was like, I kind of feel like I'm in the beginning of an X-Files episode. However, I soon realized that the Devil's Punch Bowl is designated as one of Wisconsin's scientific study areas, and for good reason. Apparently there are over 200 unique species of plants in this small 3-acre section of land, including 2 species of moss, which when they were discovered recently, there was only one individual clinging to the rocks in the Punch Bowl. I heard there's also land snails, which are apparently very rare, but unfortunately I did not see any of them. So yeah, you see all of this tubing, leading from plants, likely collecting pollen to I don't even know where. So yeah, that was a really bizarre kind of experience. So going back then away from, this kind of den of scientific tubes and hoses and stuff, back through the tunnel, I went back to where the trail deviates at the very first junction and decided to go into the Punch Bowl itself. So you descend these wooden stairs, and it's really weird because as you're descending the stairs, it immediately starts feeling chillier. And that's just due to the natural, way that the Punch Bowl is. But I mean, that shift in temperature was it was noticeable and really interesting. So hit the bottom of the stairs, take a right, and that's where you see the Punch Bowl itself. And this is genuinely one of the most magical areas I have ever seen, because you turn and it just absolutely opens up into this circular natural rock amphitheater. And this is it's fantastic. It was carved by glacial forces around 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. But the sandstone is around 500 million years old. So this area, it's almost it reminded me almost of a grotto, because the walls are these softened kind of formations of sandstone, which constantly are bleeding running water, which then collects, and there's this small stream going through the center of it. Apparently there's even an underground spring in this location. But what really, really stood out to me is that you have these, again, this circular kind of formation of softened sandstone that has been sculpted over thousands of years of just constant running water. And there's moss clinging to the edges of all of this stone. And so the water then kind of trickles off the moss, and it was breathtaking. It looked like the moss was actually kind of bleeding starlight. So yeah, for all of the natural beauty of the Devil's Punch Bowl, it also has a pretty decent history of supernatural occurrences. So yes, not only is the Devil's Punch Bowl truly one of the most aesthetically beautiful places I have ever seen, it is also the reported home to strange orbs of light and gnomes. So, gnome sweet gnome, I guess. So yes, infamous Wisconsin paranormal researcher Chad Lewis has received multiple reports of one of my personal favorite anomalies, orbs of light, varied in color. In one instance, one even passed through a vehicle. However, my favorite story, taken from Chad's book, The Wisconsin Road Guide to Mysterious Creatures, has got to be one which involves a young woman who came forward with an account of, for all intents and purposes, a gnome. So this happened many years ago now, I believe sometime in the mid-90s. A young lady was hiking with her son, and they went down into the punch bowl and stayed for a little bit, and then decided it was time to leave. So the woman turned for just one last look at the beautiful waterfall rivulet feature on the sides of the stone amphitheater, when she saw what she described as a 3 to 4 foot tall humanoid entity staring down at her from the top of the waterfall. And when I say a 3 to 4 foot tall humanoid entity, what I mean to say is that she claimed to have seen something that looked like your garden variety garden gnome. So yes, the woman claimed that standing on top of the waterfall was this little being, about 3 to 4 feet tall, with pointed ears and wearing odd clothes, which included a pointed cap. Now, her attention lapsed momentarily as she immediately asked her son to take a look and see if he could see the creature, and as soon as she looked back, it had vanished completely. So yeah, this is one of those cases that, it was a very, very short sighting, and there wasn't really any kind of give and take between the phenomenon and the person. However, so many sightings like this still have an effect on the people who witness them. I know in this case, Chad says in his book that not only was the woman first very embarrassed to come forward with what she had seen, but she said that even though the sighting was, really short, just a few seconds long, she would remember it for as long as she lived. So again, we can't really look past these sightings, which, at first glance, they don't appear to be super dramatic. It's not like there's much fanfare. It's just a short, sighting of something that is unexpected, that is unexplained. But even something as, kind of fragmentary as that can have a huge effect on someone's life. So with that being said, let's dissect this gnome. So probably the very first thing to stand out about this case is that she claimed to have seen a gnome. And yet again, so often I talk about how you have these sightings of so-called UFO occupants, which look like the good folk. And here we have, this sighting of something that someone was like, you know what? It looked like a gnome. Of course, this is a very old folkloric entity. So I'm not at all surprised that they still kind of pop up in just their sort of basic area as a natural environment. I mean, the silhouette, on the flip side, the silhouette of a small entity with a pointed cap also falls neatly in line with more modern sightings of the UFO occupants, as to make these sort of demarcations between the different types of phenomena pretty much indistinguishable. Now, there are two aspects of this case which I've been very interested in lately. And the first one that stands out to me is, again, you have this concept of perfect timing. I mean, the woman is about to leave, she decides, I'm going to take one last look at the waterfall, and whammo, there is a gnome standing on top of the waterfall. I mean, so often it seems as though these occurrences, especially the ones that tend to be shorter, they have such perfect timing that if someone had been, a minute later or had been a couple seconds earlier, they would presumably miss it. Now, in my opinion, I think that this leads to the concept that if someone isn't there to witness the phenomenon, I highly doubt that the phenomenon is there to be witnessed. It's kind of like, again, the trees falling in the forest. If a Bigfoot calls in the forest and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? Does it even exist? So that's the first thing that really stands out to me about this case, is that, again, you have this concept of just absolutely monumentally perfect timing, which I think is far more synchronistic than coincidental. The other aspect that really stands out to me is, again, we have this concept of, for as much as we witness the phenomenon seems to make a point to witness us. Yet again, as in so many other cases, she looks up at this being which is staring straight at her. Now, the other thing that I absolutely love, not particularly about this case, but the location in general, so including this case and others, is we have these sightings, and there have been multiple sightings of bizarre small entities that people say look like gnomes. And then we also have countless sightings of orbs. Now, I've said it a million times before, and I'll probably say it a million times again. anomalous lights and paranormal phenomena seem to be pretty much indistinguishable. Again, it seems as though the focus is usually on the more hard and fast sightings, the things which we can explain more deeply, and entities and crafts and things like that. However, the lights are still there. And to me, this is yet another, kind of piece of evidence to say that the lights are a fundamental part of the phenomenon and not just an auxiliary part. Now, because of the sheer oddity of the geology here at the Devil's Punchbowl as well, I wonder if this is a perfect example of being something to the geology of a place that somehow lends itself to paranormal phenomena, whether working as a natural battery of sorts or even putting people just in the right mindset. Now here, the first thing that stands out to me is you have this trifecta of running water. You have the waterfalls rivuletting their way down the cliff faces, a stream running through the dead center of it, and even underground springs. Could this create some sort of energetic charge that lends itself to whatever these anomalies are comprised of? Or is this type of atmosphere something that puts people in the right mind space to experience such anomalies? I truly don't know. Now, unfortunately, I didn't see anything supernatural on my visit to the Punch Bowl, but the natural beauty was enough to warrant a trip. Well, if you enjoyed this episode on the Devil's Punch Bowl, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may have in store. Till then, you can keep up with me at my free blog at patreon.com/justanothertinfoilhat. And for today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.
Doing.